Welcome back to the Saloon presented by Cisco. I'm your 49ers team reporter, Briana Jeannel, coming to you right after the 49ers' dominant win against the Cardinals. We've got a lot to cover in this episode. I caught up with KNBR's Justin Allegri to break down everything that happened in Arizona. We also talked to running back Brian Robinson Jr. right before the divisional matchup to hear his thoughts going into the contest. And later in this episode, we hear from Panthers reporter Kassy Hill. She previews what's to come in Monday Night Football. First up, my conversation with Justin. Hey Faithful, this is your team reporter Briana Jeannel, welcoming you to the Saloon presented by Cisco. Today I'm sitting down with Justin Allegri. Justin, nice to sit with you today.
Thanks for having me, I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. Justin, you were in Arizona to cover that amazing Niners win over the Cardinals. Tell me about your experience in the booth for that game.
Well, it was a lot of fun to call a win. The first two games that I called were in Tampa Bay and in Houston, where we didn't get a win. So I personally felt some pressure that I had zero control over getting a victory down in Arizona. But it was a lot of fun because the first play of the game was a 98-yard kick return. So we got out of the gates firing. A lot of highlights, which we always love, and working with Tim is a lot of fun. So it was good to get the win. A fun plane flight home, and now we get back to it this week on Monday night. So, yeah, it's a good time.
Exactly. We got prime time coming up. Now, you're a part of a great crew that's taking over the radio booth this season in support of Greg Papa as he's focusing on his health and making his way back. I know you're behind him. The team's behind him. Tell me about your journey to play-by-play and how you found yourself covering the Niners now.
Yeah, well, first of all, the call that I got to get the Niners fill-in work was surreal. And, you know, anytime Greg Papa is missing a game, there's a good reason for it. So the first part of that conversation was, oh my gosh, what's going on with Greg, and how will he be recovering? And then the other moment is, well, we want you to cover some games. And for me, I grew up in Santa Cruz. I'm a Bay Area native. I went to San Jose State University. I started broadcasting there, and now I'm at Cal. I grew up following the 49ers. I grew up listening to Joe Starkey and Ted Robinson and now Greg Papa. So to get the call to say, hey, we need you to do some games, I almost flipped. And at the same time, I'm thinking about Greg. So it was an emotional phone call for sure. And then, you know, you have to fall into the rhythm of calling this team. And as a fill-in, you have to follow the team like you're covering the team every week. Mm-hmm. And it's a little more challenging because for me, at least, I'm covering Cal week by week. So I'm up there constantly going to practice and covering all their storylines, but I have to try and refine it too for the 49ers so that I understand the major storylines and the player storylines and the week by week. And then also be able to recognize players that come in and out of the roster and that I can call them in a second's notice. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's certainly been a whirlwind, but it was an honor to get that call, that's for sure.
Yeah, all the intricacies that go into really knowing and understanding a roster make it two. So both Cal football and the Niners here in the Southern Bay. So tell me some of your favorite Niners memories, because you're a Bay Area native. All the fans listening, I'm sure, very close to the Bay Area. So what were some of the things that, you know, really spark joy when you think about this organization?
Well, it's funny because a lot of my memories are radio calls. The young to Owens from Joe Starkey. That's a big call that I remember. You know, I'm a little too young to remember Joe Montana, but my family members, you know, they talk about the history when I was growing up. My dad and my uncle and my grandpa talking about how great Joe was and the transition from Montana to Young. And then I started really following the 49ers in the mid-90s when Young was in his full swing and, you know, Jerry Rice was doing his thing. And then it transitioned to Owens. And then it went to, you know, Jeff Garcia, who's a San Jose State alum. That was a whole nother side of it that was really intriguing to me. So a lot of good memories. You know, Kaepernick with the big runs that he had and Ted Robinson's calls kind of live in my head with those. And Vernon Davis had some great plays too. There's a lot of memories, but most of them for me are radio memories. You know, I remember going up to Candlestick a couple of times in the bitter cold that was Candlestick Park, but a lot of my memories kind of stand out on the radio calls on that side of things. So, yeah.
I love hearing it. Now, this wasn't the first game that you covered with the Niners. You mentioned Houston, you mentioned Tampa Bay. Finally, you got the win in Arizona. Yeah. What made prepping for this game super fun? I mean, there was a lot of special moments like Brock and Ricky being back. What did you enjoy about getting ready to call this one?
Well, prep for me, there's several elements to it, right? You have your individual storylines, you have your team storylines, you have the opponent storylines, and then you have the narrative of the season. So for this game, obviously the top story was Brock coming back, and the ability to operate the offense. That was the most healthy the offense has been arguably all year. Maybe that first drive of the season in Seattle. But outside, Demarcus Robinson wasn't on the roster at that point. So this is the most healthy the team had been.
And we're at week 12?
Yeah, we're going into week 12 here. So, with Kittle, with Juszczyk, with McCaffrey, with Purdy, everybody back, it just that's the top storyline, right? And you didn't know how Brock was going to handle it. Obviously, he's got the track record, and they signed him to the big deal, so you understand that he's the guy that they want, and when he's healthy, he should be on the field, but you didn't know if there was going to be rust. You didn't know if there was going to be some sort of out of sync with the players that hadn't been playing.
It was a long period of time.
Yeah. So to me, I think just kind of prepping for a little bit of the unknown was a big part of this game. And then it just helps so much. In my head, I'm thinking, gosh, if I'm Brock and I get a 1-yard play on the first play from scrimmage to kind of get me into the game, that's probably the best case scenario. I just hand it off to CMC. He scores from a yard out. We're in this thing. That's probably the best way to start the game. So the prep was more so getting ready for the elements of conversation surrounding the return. And, being a division game and needing to win that game on the road was a big part of it too. Arizona had all their injuries coming into the game. But the offensive storylines were the big ones, and the defense stepped up too. So it was a fun one to get ready for.
Definitely, and it's always a fight against the Cardinals, no matter what. So shout out Sky Moore for getting us hot, getting us going into this game. Now, we'll start with a few injury updates from the game because that's top of the news as we go into Week 12 against the Panthers for Monday Night Football. Defensive lineman Robert Beal Jr., he'll be in protocol for a concussion. Linebacker Tatum Bethune did have a high ankle sprain. Kyle Shanahan confirmed on Monday. Expect him to be out a few weeks. Kicker Eddie Pinheiro, he's dealing with a right hamstring injury. Head coach Kyle Shanahan also shared that he'll be week to week. So with those few injuries coming from the contest, what did you think of the team's performance overall? You talked a little bit about the offense. The defense had a few highlights. Yeah. Special teams with Sky Moore driving it in the very first second of the game. I want to know your overall takeaway from this game and what it meant to this locker room.
Well, and for the overall storylines of the year, obviously it's a young defense, right? And you lose your top players in Bosa and Warner, and your play caller in Warner, right? The guy that just is the field general for this team. So how does the young defense respond? And we're seeing that progress. And I know Robert Saleh early in the year said, I would love to see this team defensively peak in the later stages of the season, because then you can make that playoff push and you can have your defensive unit be kind of where you want it to be. I think we saw some strides to that. Certainly the takeaways against Brissett, who is statistically one of the best in the NFL at not throwing interceptions, threw 2 of them. That was a good part of it. And we got to see Nick Martin a little bit in that linebacking role after Bethune went down. So I expect him to get some more playing time here and him develop. I think he's a guy that they really do look at as a player that can be special for this defense. But moving forward, they need to get their run fits right. That's a big part of this, and play a little more solidly defensively in the wide receiver core that's kind of picked them apart at times this year. So, and I looked at that game with Brissett with whatever it was, 47 completions. A lot of those were checkdowns. I wouldn't be too concerned about that. But, I do see strides being made from this defense moving forward, and guys that are in younger roles are starting to pick up things and starting to learn and starting to progress, and that's what you want to see at this point in the season.
Yeah, definitely. And Kyle Shanahan said on that Monday call when he was recapping the game that, a lot of those completions that we did see in the third, fourth quarter, the Niners were without a lot of their defensive guys, especially with Tatum Bethune going out. He's, filling in for Fred Warner. What a big moment for him. So now the Niners defense is going to be looking towards, like you said, Nick Martin, Curtis Robinson, Luke Gifford. That's a little bit of a question mark over at linebacker. So I'm excited to see what happens in practice this week and how we work towards Monday night. Let's talk about Christian McCaffrey. I feel like we can't not talk about Christian McCaffrey when we're covering this game. Honestly, we can't not talk about him every single week that the Niners play. 3 touchdowns, continues to break records every single week. From your perspective in the booth, what makes him so consistently dominant?
It's funny because a 3 touchdown performance, he was catching the ball, he was running the ball, and still you kind of go, oh, well, that's just a ho-hum game for CMC. That's just kind of what he does.
It's regular.
He just goes about his business so well. And to have those wide receivers back that we're talking about and have the offense operating under Purdy, it just makes him more dangerous. It really does, because you can move him out into the slot. You can run him between the tackles now. He had his first 20-yard run of the season. There's just so many ways you can utilize him as a weapon. And I think the best play of his night was the catch he made that set up that third touchdown a couple plays later, where he just climbed the ladder, showed the vertical, he was downfield. I mean, that just tells you what kind of athlete he is. He's not just a between the tackles running back. He can do it all. And he does it week in and week out. And without the other weapons the 49ers had, they needed him to be that player. And now he's that player with everybody else. So it just gives so many more looks to that offense. It makes them all the more dangerous. But the numbers are just wow. I mean, I think I saw a graphic. He's on pace to be 1,000-yard rusher and 1,000-yard receiver this year. It's just insane? Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
He definitely unlocks this offense because no matter where you put him, he's a threat. And imagine with all the other weapons that the Niners have on that offense, it just makes it that more confusing for whoever's defending.
I mean,
the
Ricky
Niners.
Pearsall had one catch, but he affected the game so much in other ways. I mean, you can look at the box score and say, well, gosh, he didn't have that much of an impact. He did.
You didn't watch the game if you say that. Yeah.
Right. And there's just so many more other weapons that are getting the ball and getting those stats. That's what makes this offense fun. And that's what makes this offense difficult to prepare for if you're an opposing team.
I love having all those guys on the offensive side of the ball. Now, Brock Purdy returned home and delivered one of his most cleanest games, honestly, of his career. What stood out to you most about his performance, his command of the offense? We talked a little bit about it at the top of the podcast. You didn't know what to expect from Brock. What did you take away from his performance?
I thought he was himself, and that can be difficult to do when you've missed some time, when you have a backup. You
haven't been yourself for a few weeks.
Right, and when you have a backup quarterback that is performing. I mean, I know Brock is the starting quarterback, but you got to look at Mac and go, gosh, that's a great job from him.
Definitely.
You don't want there to be a controversy. I don't think there is, but that's probably in the back of your mind, right? I gotta show myself here and be the guy that they expect me to be. And I don't think any pressure was shown from him. I just thought he came out, he operated, and he was himself. And that's all you could ask for from him in game one coming back. I thought the big play that, and I think he even commented on it post-game, that he kind of felt like, well, now we're back and we're playing football, was the first touchdown to George Kittle, where he checked it off, changed the play up, got the snap off with 1 second, and put it right on Kittle in the end zone and got the ball in the air and the nose down. And that's, to me, a touch play that tells you he's back. That's a throw he makes when he's in a groove mid-season. And then it was just off from there. I thought that play exemplified why he is the guy that they invested in. And both mentally, physically, the attributes to get to an open receiver, he was the guy, and he proved it.
And you just said his name right now. His connection with George Kittle is amazing to watch, whether you're watching from the practice field or you're watching in the lights of a Sunday game. It is so cool to see George hit his 50th touchdown milestone, 50th receiving touchdown milestone, multiple franchise lists. How special is that Purdy to Kittle connection, and how important was it for his first game back?
Well, we brought it up on the air. That was touchdown number 23, the second one that he had to Kittle, which puts them second place in franchise history behind Alex Smith and Vernon Davis for quarterback and tight end touchdowns. So if you're behind those two, which were pretty darn good, you're doing something right. And we know that there's a lot of football left between those two to be played. So the connection that they have is tremendous. Whether you send him out on a pattern like that, or you have a shallow cross with Kittle to make him just kind of make a move with his athleticism and make a man miss. They are special. And you can understand why Brock uses him as that security blanket from time to time, because he knows if I get it to George's hands, something's going to happen. He's going to make a guy miss. He's going to break a tackle, and something's going to happen. So it's nice to see that connection already right back to it.
Definitely. And to think that Purdy and Kittle have found their way to second in franchise history after only playing for, 3 seasons now?
And maybe less with maybe the time missed from both players.
It's really cool to see, and I'm waiting for them to take that top spot. That should be pretty fun. Now, we talked before we started recording how Sky Moore got your voice going for that game. Instantly set the tone with that 98-yard kickoff return. I want to hear your thoughts on our special teams group overall. You know, we've gone through a few ups and downs throughout a few seasons that we're really starting to see things kick into gear for this season.
Yeah, I think 49er fans, and understandably so, see the special teams unit as one of the holes on this team. But over the course of this year, I think we're seeing Sky Moore become more of the person that he was brought in to be in the kick return game. We know that the punt returns can be pretty good too. But aside from that, Eddie Pinheiro, and I know he's down now, it's so nice to have a guy that can go out there and consistently make field goals. And when you think about that Cardinals game, the last minute plus of the first half.
That week 3 game?
Right?
Yeah.
Well, I'm talking about last week. The last minute plus
also.
of the first half where he gets 2 field goals and you send him in the locker room and it was like, what just happened? 6 points are on the board in a minute plus. And that's what Pinheiro can do because he's so consistent and you have so much confidence in him. So that really does help the offense. It helps the defense. And when you're missing a bunch of players offensively, if you have a consistent kicker, it can change the game quite dramatically. So now they're going to be without him this week. So what does that mean? And in terms of the kick cover and the punt cover, I think that's been improving week to week, right? Average field position was near the bottom of the league at the start of the season. It's starting to tick up, which is a good sign, especially when you're trying to win some games and make a playoff coming up. But they're moving in the right direction for sure in special teams.
Definitely. And when you're talking about Eddie Pinheiro making such a clutch kick and we're confused on which kick exactly that was because there's so
that's
many.
A good thing too.
I think that's a good thing, especially even against the same team, the Cardinals. In week 3 and then week 11 was so much fun. So we're hoping that he gets well, hoping he gets back on track. Now the defense came up big with 3 takeaways. I think that's the main focus for this defensive group, a young defensive group as we get ready for any matchup. Mustafa's interception, Lenore's pick, Upton Stout Forrest fumble, then Keon White taking it back. Which moment did you feel like was the biggest turning point for you?
Well, any turnovers generated right now are big because when you look at the turnover margin for the season, the 49ers winning record, but a minus turnover margin. So that would kind of indicate, well, they're outplaying in certain elements of their game to offset the takeaways. Arizona, for example, they were a positive in turnover margin. They had a losing record. So anytime you can generate an extra possession, it only helps your cause, right? And I think the 49ers weren't getting a lot of turnovers early. It wasn't for a lack of effort. There were a couple of opportunities that just didn't happen. So that's going to swing back toward the positive or toward the middle. So any turnover you can get is great. To me, the big one, obviously, was the strip at the goal line, directly taking away points. And Upton Stout, I mean, great job from him. He knew he wasn't going to make the tackle to save a touchdown, so the only option was to try and go in and rip the ball out. And boy, did he. So that takes 6 right off the board immediately. So that, to me, was the biggest one. I love seeing the secondary, though, get some interceptions because they hadn't had one in a long time going into to the Houston game. Finally got one. And now they can get back on track. And maybe that off their shoulders is something that they can forget about and put behind them and start to generate some more turnovers themselves because they're more than capable. And they've dropped a couple to this year. And I think because it was in the back of their mind, I got to make a play. But now you're going to start to see it more and more here down the stretch.
Speaking of who's helping out that defense, is all the Niners faithful that made their way to Arizona or even Arizona locals that were maybe cheering for Brock or Ricky? I'm sure you and Tim covered it on the radio, but even on the TV broadcast on Fox, they had to address it even before the game started because there were so many red and gold fans in this stadium. I mean, they talked with Jonathan Gannon, they talked with the Cardinals team, and they mentioned that, hey, we're going to have to use the silent count even in our home stadium. What did you think of the way that the 49ers fans just can take over road games like that?
Yeah, we went on the air about an hour before kick, and about 20 minutes before we go on the air, the DJ, in-house DJ, was hyping up the crowd and whatnot, and he said, we're going to beat the Niners today. And there wasn't a cheer, there was a boo. And so I was sitting there going, whoa, that's how it's going to be today. Here we go. And it was. I mean, if you're forcing a home team to use their silent count, you're winning as a fan base. I mean, that is not something a home team should be doing. And it completely throws off their rhythm, throws off their game plan, has them think about every play now. So it is something that it should not be understated. That is value from a fan base when they can go on the road and generate that kind of noise. I know we see it in Southern California in SoFi Stadium. But if the red and gold show up to every road game like that, especially in division, it's going to be a problem for home teams to handle and generate that kind of offense and that rhythm and that flow that they're used to having in their home venue. So I thought it was great. It was great from the get-go.
Yeah, just from the start, which is awesome. Now, we've talked a lot about a lot of the superstars from this game, with Brock Purdy being back, George Kittle making his 50th touchdown of his career. I want to hear about some under-the-radar performances that really stood out to you. We talked about Ricky Pearsall. Yes, one catch, but he had a huge impact in the blocking game. Maybe it was Upton Stout's strip of the ball? Was it maybe Curtis Robinson stepping in at linebacker? Who do you think actually helped push this game forward that they're not getting a lot of credit for?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the linebackers because of what we mentioned, the star players being out. And every time somebody goes down, you're asking another player to step up, and a player that hasn't seen a lot of snaps, hasn't seen a lot of time on the field, but you have to expect that they've been putting the work in practice, and that'll translate to the game. So I look at those linebackers as guys that need to move forward. And look, Trey McBride had a good day. He had over 100 yards receiving. He's one of the best tight ends in football. But those linebackers needed to cover him. And for a good amount of that first half, he was not really involved in the offensive play scheme. They were going to Wilson a lot, sure, but the linebackers were doing their job in those coverage situations on Trey McBride. So I thought that was a good job. And I thought if that's the way moving forward they're going to look at it. I mean, we saw against the Rams where they ran those 3 tight end sets. I think teams are going to look at that and say, how can we try to replicate that? How can we bring in the extra package to exploit some of the young defensive players for the 49ers? And I thought those linebackers were tested against Trey McBride, but they did a good job early. And then, he had a lot of his yardage and he had his touchdown late when the game was in hand. But I think the standout performance from players that maybe you don't think about probably would have to go to the linebacking core.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely be taking a close look at them this week in practice as they're getting ready to face the Carolina Panthers on Monday Night Football at Levi Stadium. Now, as you've sat with and digested this Arizona game, what are your thoughts on this Panthers-Niners matchup in prime time?
Yeah, it's a Panthers team that they're starting to get hot.
Yeah.
And this is going to be a big matchup now because both teams are jockeying for position for a playoff spot. And they, at the beginning of the year, thought that Chuba was going to be their star running back. And now the way that Dowdle is running, they've got 2 guys that can run the football very, very well. And then Bryce Young last week, I can't remember what the exact number was, but he put up 400 yards plus of passing offense. So it's going to be a scary offensive team coming to town this week. And it might be one of those games where it's a shootout and you have to outscore them at some point and you have to generate a turnover at some point. But it's going to be fun to watch. That's for sure. A lot of young offensive talent on this Panthers team, and they're playing with some confidence right now.
Well, a lot to look out for this Monday night. Justin, thank you so much for joining me in the Saloon today. Can't wait to hear from you very soon.
I appreciate it, and I would like to mention that as a fill-in broadcaster, people like you and people that cover this team are very valuable. You really are. And so the storylines that you guys put out and the conversations you have really are beneficial.
Sweet. Well, the Niners, always home, always family here. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now let's rewind the tape and hear from Brian Robinson Jr. right before the Niners took off to Arizona. Hey, Faithful, it's your team reporter, Briana Jeannel, sitting down with Brian Robinson right before the 49ers take off to Arizona. Brian, how are you doing?
Excellent.
Excellent. Yeah. I love to hear it. Well, we got to start right here. Back-to-back games with touchdowns. Let's talk about it. How rewarding has it been to see the work you've been putting in behind the scenes finally show up in the stat sheet?
Very rewarding. That's the goal. That's the goal anytime you touch the football is to score a touchdown or cross that goal line. So, everything you do in between, the work and getting to the game is to have you ready for those opportunities, and couldn't have felt any better than to cross the goal line in the last 2 weeks.
That's awesome. I love hearing it. Now, since arriving in the Bay back in August, you've talked about staying patient and preparing for your moment. You still talk about it to this day. How important is that patience and the trust been in this offense, and what have you learned from this group so far this season?
It's been great. Obviously it has taught me great patience, playing behind, great elite players like Christian, So I just try to take, all the time that I'm just sitting back watching to just learn and just pick up on, all the things that's, made him, so good and great over the years. And, obviously it's, been taking, much patience, due to the fact that, I'm used to, playing a lot more. But, it's just a story. That's just the story of my life. I've had to be patient in numerous situations in my life and in my career in order to, get to where I am today.
Well, all that patience is paying off these past few weeks. And tell me about what it's like working with Bobby Turner. What's the biggest thing you've taken away from his emphasis on discipline, preparation, and just being mentally tougher than your opponent?
Right. And Bobby T is one of those guys who's been doing this years before I was even thought about. So it's so many things and wrinkles he knows to the game well before I was even born. And he continued to like just mold that information onto me, and just his style of coaching is unique. He's straight to the point. Like I said, he's been doing this for 50 plus years, and so I appreciate all the tips that he leaves with me.
Have you had to take any of his tests?
Yeah, I have to take his test every week, and I can honestly say like I've never had a test. As long as his, but it's all to just help us stay on top of the details, stay prepared for the game, in and out, week in and week out. So the test is very helpful to us too.
Yeah, he's very meticulous. Now, what's it like sharing the room with Christian? You talked a little bit about it, but what stands out about the two of you is that you both take preparation very seriously. Would you describe it as like an iron sharpens iron dynamic?
Definitely iron sharpens iron. I've been watching Christian, for years, for probably the last 8 to 10 years, before he even stepped foot into the NFL, and to be sharing a room with him now and kind of picking up on what makes him a great pro and his professionalism, and just trying to add that to my pro bag. And like you said, we both take preparation very seriously, so that's the way we have to complement each other as well. Just when we play the game. Like, he goes out and he do his thing, and I just got to be ready to come in behind him and do my thing as well. And, we prep for that as well. So, it's a reason why we, prep the way we do.
Yeah, I mean, the moment you joined the team, the first few things you talked about was wanting to lock into your routine, like get your sleep schedule right, studying this offense, the whole process. What does that routine look like for you now when you're playing back-to-back divisional games?
I feel like it looks more on track for me now, especially now in the season. Obviously, it was a little bit more difficult for me early on, having to move across the country and adjust to time zone and just different work schedule. And obviously now, just week 11 in the season, I feel like it's more structured. I have way better structure within my full schedule and my routine, and it's been great for me.
I love to hear it. Well, let's get into this Sunday. All 4 NFC West teams are playing each other across weeks 10 and 11. How helpful is it to see how Seattle attacked Arizona's defense as you prepare for this matchup?
It's always helpful to see, different opponents or the opponents they played before us, and especially in our division. You want to see how all of those teams, play, how they play each other, and it's all in the division, so it's all gonna boil back down to what we do. So, it's always good to, see these teams that we have to play multiple times in the year play against each other, because, we got to stay ready for those teams because they're in our division and we got to stay ready for them.
Yeah, take those notes. Now, what's the focus this week to get things going in the run game against Arizona's front? Tell me about some of the opportunities you see there.
I just see us, like, as long as we focus on what we need to do in order to be a good team. And it's never about like another team. It's never about what they do well or bad. It's about, how well we can do our things. So I think it's, many opportunities in the run game. We just got to do what we do and just come out and just run the ball.
Well, Brian, I'm excited to see you play in Arizona this weekend. Have so much fun.
I will.
Now it's time to go behind the bench and hear all the action that happened against the Cardinals. Right after, I caught up with wide receiver Sky Moore to hear about his 98-yard kickoff return to start the game. Here's all that action and more right here.
Let's go, baby! Let's go! I'm all the way. Hey, KB! Hey, that's how it is, man. Hey, let's get out there, man. It's all about us, man. Play fast, play physical, be dominant, be who we are, man. Hey, and that's playmakers now. Yeah. Hey, players on 3. 1, 2, 3. Hey, play. Let's go, baby. Come on. Hey, we here.
Today's the day. Wake up, get in front of your TV, eat the popcorn. Love you guys. Have fun, guys. Love you.
Yuri's my birthday! Yuri's my birthday!
Let's go, boys! Let's go, boys! Let's go, boys! Oh yeah, it's go time, Diddy! It's go time, Diddy! Come on, man! Let's go, boys! Bring it in for me, and then you guys can go get this warm-up in. Hey, boys, when we started the season, we talked about desperation. I haven't heard that word in a couple of weeks, but I'm desperate. I hate losing. I love winning. Let's go. Guys on 3, 1, 2, 3. Turn me up. Turn me up. Hey. 1, 2, 3. Dominate. Leave everything you got like it's your last game today, all right? Judges on 3. 1, 2, 3. Judges. Let's go, 9-1. Let's go. Woo. Let's go, 5. Let's go. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go, baby. It's time to take pride in this. It ain't no more motivating, ain't no encouraging speech. It's week 11. You do or you don't. We can do it. Let's go now. Win on 3, 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah, baby.
All day.
I feel it in my bones.
Yeah.
I feel it in my bones. Every day, man. Oh. Every day.
That's self. That's self. I know what it is. Showtime. Come on, baby.
Come on.
Come on, about it. Let's start this thing the right way. Let's go to the house on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Underway for this Week 11 matchup as an end-over-end kick will sail towards Sky Moore, takes it at the 3-yard line, far hash, brings it up the field, gets past the 25 to the 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, has one man to beat, it's the kicker, Sky Moore on his way down to the 5, diving for the pylon, and he can't get in, marked down at the 2.
I see you, Scott. Throw that bitch on there.
Hey, what I tell you? Meet me over there, gang. That's it.
All right, good job. Good job. Good job. Great work. You gotta keep going. Great job. Y'all good? Yep. Yeah, hell yeah. Let's go, man. Y'all good? Good?
Here's Purdy to throw, looking to his left, looking over the middle, throws to the left. McCaffrey makes the catch at the 5, turns into the end zone. Touchdown, 49ers. It's a 9-yard catch for CMC, his second touchdown of the day, and it's 19-7.
I'm saying it's a great job by Brock, bro. It's a little thing, but it's a huge thing. To recognize that.
Physicality, effort, reset, refocus, do it again. Y'all got me?
High snap, the fake and the handoff right up the middle, and wrapping him up is D. Winters, bringing down Brissett all the way back at the 9-yard line.
Here's Brissett in a clean pocket over the middle, and it is intercepted. Malik Mustafa with the interception at the 34.
Wow! They come in bunches. We got a whole other half.
Wide receiver. Brissett off the play fake. Under pressure on the roll, throwing on the run, and it's intercepted by Diamador Lenore. Lenore weaving back towards the middle of the field, now to the sideline. Lenore to the 40, still on his feet. Lenore, they weren't sure he'd play today. And Diamador Lenore's got an interception and down inside the Arizona 15.
Hey, good work. I was trying to follow you away from me. Your legs.
I swear,
I'm trying to take you to the house. You be making shit harder for yourself.
For 6, 3rd and goal from the 4. CMC back into the game.
Can they beat man coverage?
Purdy to throw, again floats it into the end zone. Kittle for the 2nd time. Touchdown, 49ers.
Go! Let's do it again. Hey, let's do it again, baby.
Brissett over the middle to the 5, to the 2, to the 1, and in is Elijah Higgins, but the ball's out. The ball came out before he broke the plane. It's ruled a fumble, and Keon White recovers for San Francisco.
Keep balling. Let's go, man. Keep balling. Keep balling, baby.
Breaks a tackle. Touchdown, Christian McCaffrey. The cherry on top for the San Francisco 49ers.
It's a big statement right there, and it just shows you what this offense can be.
I'm on the field at State Farm Stadium with the one and only Sky Moore right after the Niners win over the Cardinals. Sky, what a way to start the game, a 98-yard return. How did that feel?
It felt great, you know, just having all the juices built up to come out here and start the game with a bang like that. I wanted to get in the end zone, one more yard, but it was a great way to kick the team off.
Should have been a touchdown.
Yeah, facts.
You still set it up for Christian, and the crowd here in Arizona went wild. What do you think of 49ers fans just taking over stadiums each and every game?
I was just telling Russ that, like, it felt like a home game. Like, every time a call went our way, it went crazy. Like, it felt like Levi over here. So, big shout out to the faithful for sure.
And just how important was this win for this team's fight in the division?
Man, it was everything. You know, divisional opponent, you know, and not only that, it's just the next game on the schedule. So, we got to keep rolling.
Awesome. Thank you, Sky.
Yep, thank you.
Congrats on the win.
Appreciate it.
All right, Faithful, joining me on the Saloon now is Panthers reporter Kassidy Hill. Cassidy joining us to preview Monday Night Football. Thanks for joining us, Cassidy.
Hey, Briana. Yeah, thanks for having me. Very, very excited to get out there this weekend and kick off what should be a really good game now.
Definitely a big-time NFC matchup. Bryce Young is coming off a franchise 448 franchise record in passing yards.
Yeah.
What should 49ers fans know about how he's grown and what kind of challenge he presents?
A lot of what we saw Sunday against the Falcons kind of mirrored what we saw out of Bryce towards the end of last season. Now, granted, he never threw for that many yards. That was a career. I think he had hit a career best by about halfway through the third quarter, and then he just kind of kept going, set a franchise record, as you said. I don't think we see 448 yards every week. That's going to be a high point, and it was a good game. But what this offense has really done this year is lean a lot on the running game, and they've said all off season, and they said throughout the season that's what we want to do. We want to be a run first team. Rico Dowdle has really helped them do that. I think he's in the top 4 in rushing in the NFL. He had a couple of 200-yard games. He's already hit 1,000 scrimmage yards for the season. But teams have started to adjust for that and kind of try to put all of their focus on shutting down Rico. I'm sure we'll see the 49ers try to do that as well. And so what we saw versus the Saints 2 weeks ago was an offense not quite prepared for Rico to be taken out of the game plan, and a little bit of floundering. And then what we saw Sunday versus the Falcons was an offense with an answer. And the fact that Bryce was able to throw for that many yards, I think he was like 31 of 45, something like that, 3 touchdowns. They did that against the number 1 passing defense in the league. And so it does become impressive. Now that's something defenses have to answer for. Bryce is always at his best when he is on the move and he gets out of the pocket and he kind of moves around a little bit. That's what we saw him find a lot of success with when he was at Alabama, and he won the Heisman and a national championship. It's something that didn't happen his rookie season. And then last season, it happened more towards the end of the season, the second half of the season. And it's really where he started to find success. The first half of the season, he was kind of in the pocket a little bit more just because they were such a run-heavy offense. And having to go away from the run allowed you to see Bryce kind of open things up a little bit more, actually open things up a lot more versus the Falcons. Again, that's now something defenses are going to answer for. So what does this balance look like against the 49ers? It's going to be a lot of fun to see. We have seen, like I said, though, Bryce kind of go on a little run like this, like he did the last, I think, 6 games of the 2024 season. Does that continue? We'll find out Monday.
Yeah, definitely. Now, this will be Christian McCaffrey's first time facing the Panthers since that trade. How is that matchup being talked about in Carolina, and what are the emotions like on your side?
It was really cool to hear the guys in the locker room this week talk about him, and we go back in there today, so we'll find out more. But Chuba Hubbard especially, those are 2 guys that were really, really close when Christian was here. And Chuba talked about, the impact that Christian McCaffrey made on this team, on this franchise, on this city is still felt to this day. And he's like, and it's going to continue to be felt. And he said, there's so much love there. And a lot of Panthers fans still feel it as well. That was, I think, a trade that took people maybe a little by surprise when it happened. But you still see fans show up to games on Sundays here in Charlotte in McCaffrey 22 jerseys. There seems to still be a lot of love from McCaffrey and his wife Olivia for this city as well. And to hear Chuba talk about the impact that Christian had on him as a player, but just this locker room as a whole was special. And, there's not as many guys still here that were here when Christian was here. And so there's not going to be as many people for him to catch up with as there might have been if this game was a year or 2 ago. But the ones that are still here still feel his impact to this day. And they could not speak highly enough about him this week. I know it's going to be a fun matchup. J.C. Horn said, I'm expecting CMC to want to get his get back. I'm expecting him to try to run at me hard. And so they know that there'll be that fun element to it too. But still so much love between a lot of these guys. I think when he got married last year, I counted, there were like 15 or 16 Panthers players there at their wedding. And so this is going to be an exciting one for them. And I know they're looking forward to it as well.
Definitely a ton of love and respect on both sides. Now, let's dive closer into this Panthers offense. McMillan has become one of the most productive receivers in this league. What makes this matchup against the 49ers secondary an interesting one to watch?
What's going to be interesting with Teteroa McMillan, regardless of defenses, but again with the 49ers defense, is they have sort of shifted how they've used him. He started the beginning of the season essentially just being ISO'd up. Dave Canales talked about it this week. He was in a lot of 3-by-1s where he was the isolated receiver over on the side. And it was because he can win one-on-one matchups. Well, now you saw defenses around week 7, week 8, defenses really started to tilt their coverage towards T-Mac. How do you answer that? They started to answer it with more to Xavier Legette, more to Jalen Coker, and that really hit its stride versus the Falcons. T-Mac received, I think it was 27% of the target share. That was his second fewest target share of the season, and he had his best game. He finished with 8 receptions, 130 yards, 2 touchdowns. And it was because other receivers were taking attention and kind of shifting the balance of the defense back over, and he was able to kind of get free and do a lot of stuff. He's so good as a route runner and in losing guys. And if a guy even stays on him, he's big, he's physical, he's tall. He can win a lot of those 50-50 matchups. We always joke he almost does better with the hard ones, that the easy ones, it gives you too much time to think about it. But if he's got a guy draped over him, he's like, oh, I've got this. And you're seeing him kind of figure out that rookie balance of making the easy ones easy as well and not overthinking it. And now that, again, we saw so much with this offense that we had not seen all season versus the Falcons. So what is the 49ers answer is going to be so interesting to watch. Do they still try to cloud T-Mac and kind of cover him more? Or do you have to still account for Jalen Coker, Xavier Legette, Bryson Tremaine, the tight ends who all had a big game on Sunday, and the tight ends as well have had big games several times throughout the wins this season. It's going to be interesting to see how they choose to cover T-Mac because when he's left alone, he can do some damage.
Yeah, well, tell us more about Rico Dowdle. What does he do best, and how might Carolina try to use him against this 49ers front?
What Rico does best is, to quote Dave Canales, he runs violent every single time he touches the ball. But really what he does best is read defenses. Some running backs, and this is not a knock, it's just how they play their game. Some running backs know see ball, see hole, hit hole. And Rico is really, really good at understanding what defenses are doing and how to counteract that within the game. We've seen a few different times now, like either coaches have talked about it or, he's been mic'd up, and we've seen clips of him coming to the sideline and saying, they're doing this, let me do that, and advocating for a play, and the coaches call it, and it works. And we've seen that a couple of different times now. And so, he runs violent, he runs hard, but where as defenses are focusing more in on him, where he's really starting to shine is knowing where their weaknesses are and how to take advantage of that. And that might mean a wheel route or like bouncing outside instead of trying to just run over a guy. What's going to be interesting this week as well is that Chuba Hubbard finally feels like his calf is completely healed. And he had one of his better games against the Falcons as well. He was just running smooth. He was running fast. He picked up almost 6 yards a carry. So do we see a little bit more of that timeshare again that they tried earlier in the season? And they are two completely different backs. So that if they're both running at 100%, that makes it an interesting matchup for defenses because you can't defend them the same way.
I mean, Niners fans, Carolina is top 10 in those fourth down conversions. I believe some of the biggest plays will be in those short yardage, high leverage situations. On the flip side, Brock Purdy's back under center for the 49ers. Yes. What do you foresee Carolina's biggest challenges to be when facing Purdy?
Yeah, it's going to be what he can do downfield and what he can do kind of off the cuff. This is a secondary that has really stepped up this season for the Panthers. But, Brock Purdy looked like his old self at the highest level last week. What's going to be interesting, too, is like there's some different injuries and stuff in the middle of the field. And Panthers fans know very, very well what Christian McCaffrey can do to you there. And so how do they adjust for that? And do they put more of their focus towards McCaffrey or do they put more of their focus towards Brock Purdy? They have a lot of young pass rushers who are really showing up. And so you can kind of put them out there and tell them, go get the quarterback and leave the rest of your defense to take care of that middle of the field. I do think the biggest thing, though, is going to be having enough guys to kind of protect that downfield area. But, of course, then again, that leaves you susceptible to McCaffrey kind of running up front. So, I keep saying it's going to be an interesting thing to watch. But this is such a cool matchup because of where each team's strength and weaknesses are. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a pretty high-scoring game. Watch it be like a 10-13 game now. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's pretty high-scoring, just given where each team's strengths and weaknesses are.
Yeah, I want to dive a little bit more into that duality because we've talked about Christian McCaffrey a ton and keeping an eye out for him, but George Kittle also, them both are having both very big seasons. How does Carolina prepare for a duo with that kind of versatility and production? Yeah,
they play a lot of big nickel. And I think they're going to have to do that again this week just because of some of the injuries in their linebacker core and trust their corners and their big safeties to go out there and take care of it. And that's a harrowing assignment sometimes to tell a safety or even a nickel, like, hey, go cover George Kittle. But you're just going to have to want to, as simple as it sounds, like you're going to have to want to go out there and tackle him and make a play because he's probably going to be bigger than you. He's going to be a little bit stronger. Do you have the skills and the technique to override that? And so I don't foresee them really shifting out of how much they like to play that big nickel. Maybe they do. They could surprise me. But that's really kind of their base defense more than their base. And so I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, this is going to be a physical, tough week. Like, just buckle up your chin strap and go out there and do it.
For 49ers fans who might not keep close tabs on the Panthers, who's one underrated player on Carolina's roster that could make a really big impact on Monday night?
That's such a good question. One player that I think people would know, but maybe not if they're not watching as much Panthers games, is Trayvon Merrick. He's a safety. He's the reason they can play so much of that big nickel. He's going to be someone they probably do trust on Kittle a lot. He's had several games where he's kind of made a game-changing play. He's a big reason the Panthers won versus Green Bay in Lambeau. He's a hard hitter. He can also play deep and play the ball and get turnovers. He can make a game-winning play, and he has more than once already this season. And so you kind of have to know where he is on the field, which is also interesting because he's really, really good at disguising his coverages and what he's doing. That's one of the reasons he's been able to be such a big playmaker.
Well, Kassidy, a lot to look out for in primetime this Monday night. Thank you so much for joining us on the Saloon to break it all down.
Thanks so much.
Faithful, that will do it for today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe to The Saloon, presented by Cisco on YouTube, SiriusXM, and your favorite podcast platform. Niners Panthers this Monday night. Don't forget to tune in. Faithful, that'll do it for today. Thanks for tuning in, and go Niners.